Thanks for tuning in to more NASCAR coverage on Proline TV. I'm Greg DePalma, joined by CJ Radune from rotowire.com. How's it going, CJ?
It's going all right. Had a good race at Phoenix for a change, ready for Las Vegas. We'll see if it can actually get any better.
I'm sure it will, because the one thing that Phoenix still we didn't get, even though it was much better, was the cream once again rose to the top. And we didn't have parity that it didn't really look like at much point late in the race that it wasn't going to be anybody but Bell and Blaney, the two best drivers at the racetrack. So that's the next step, but it definitely was a lot more entertaining, no question. So that's a good thing.
It was definitely more entertaining, and I'm not even sure I'd throw Bell into that conversation. Blaney had such a strong car all day. It was apparent pretty quickly once he got out front again for the last time that no one was going to be able to run him down. So again, Las Vegas is a much better track. I think these new rules with the increased horsepower, the more fragile tire, I think that at least is showing signs of promise. We'll see what it does to the track that was already good, see if it makes it even better or not.
Yeah, remember, this is the first 1.5 mile race of the year, and I mentioned this on the show on Saturday night, and I have to apologize to anybody out there if you're wondering where our Saturday coverage was. Well, we had it live, but I made the mistake of showing the odds actually from Bovada on the screen, and they didn't like that because there's a there's this now rule on YouTube regarding sportsbook. Even though you say that it's not for kids, the video. So yeah, I have to now, which I do on my golf show and some of the other shows, but I just never thought about it. And they said, no, we can't post the show. So that really sucked. But anyway, the good news is that for the last 2 weeks on the Saturday starting lineup show, the odds have been available as long as I waited a little bit and decided to do it a little bit later in the day, between like 4 and 8. So that's what I'll do again this week. And hopefully we'll be able to get the odds on Saturday now, which is very important because, again, even last week we saw the odds change. Well, for Blaney, it went down to 3-1 from whatever it was. What was it, 5-1? So it wasn't that big of a deal. But this week is going to be very important. Qualifying, positioning, and practice, very important at Las Vegas. So you don't want to miss our Saturday show when I go over the speed charts, because if you don't qualify in the top 10 here, and maybe even practice in the top 10 here, you may not have a legitimate chance to win here, as crazy as it sounds. And we're going to get into all of that in just a little bit. That's going to be coming up on Saturday. But again, just talking about Vegas, because let's do it. The fact is that if you look at both races last year, all three manufacturers had a chance in both races, and that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, definitely a competitive track. Actually, qualifying, as you said, extremely important. But ironically, the Hamlin win in the fall was the first time since like 2009, I think, that somebody had won from the pole position. A lot of guys have won from the front row and inside the top 10. Very few have won outside of that. But yeah, this track with the progressive banking, the smooth surface, the way that this rules package is set up, it's like custom tailored for this rules package. And we've seen some really good races, a lot of competition throughout the field. And both races last year actually had a pass for the win inside of the last 20 laps too.
Yeah, if you look at it, over the last 12 races, 11 winners started in the top 10. All 12 out of the 12 started in the top 7 rows. During that same stretch, Chevy has 6 wins. Ford has won 2 out of the last 3. And you mentioned Denny Hamlin's win, not only by the pole, but it was also the first Toyota win in the next gen. Matter of fact, I believe you had to go back to the last Toyota win pre-next gen was Denny Hamlin.
It was. Yep.
So he bookended that. And it wasn't like he dominated the race. It was such
No.
an up and down race for about 5 to 7 different drivers could have won, and Hamlin just happened to be sort of like that. What was that game? You play with the chairs and the music, and whoever gets stuck without the chair, and that's basically what it was. It just happened to be Denny Hamlin was right there at the time, and they timed it perfectly and won the race. That was it. I think he only led like 9 laps in the race. So
yeah,
that's what we want to see.
Yeah, same thing. Not same thing, but nobody really dominated the spring race. But similarly, Josh Berry, when he won in the spring, he only led 18 laps out of the 267. I think the most laps led that day was Kyle Larson. It was only 61. There are a bunch of drivers that led 20 some, or over 20, I should say, or a handful that led over 20. But again, another very competitive race. And for whatever reason at this track with this rules package, things aren't decided until the last, say, 40 miles or so, 50 miles.
And again, as I said before, what's really important to note is the fact that it's a first 2026 package. Cars been worked on for months. This is the first one for 1.5. So anything can happen, especially. Not only is that normally the case every year because it happened to Josh Berry. Josh Berry came into the race 100-1. That's probably the best pick I ever made with a long shot. Came through, had nothing. If you look at Josh Berry's prior, let's see, this is his average right now. Even right now with the win in 5 races, his average start is 24.4 and his average finish is 20th with the win. So he didn't have much. The reason I picked him was because of the fact that he had won a couple of races in the O'Reilly series. And I'm sure there was a couple of things I threw in there and I said, hey, what the hell? But that's the thing. You just don't know. It's the first race of a 1.5. So we could get and I think there were some nice long shots that we'll get into as well that I think we could target. And check this out too. Speaking of starting position, in the fall race last year, 9 of the top 10 who started the day on Saturday in practice had the same top 10 in qualifying. I have never seen that before. So 9 drivers finished in the top 10 in practice and qualifying, the same 9. And that is extremely unusual in this sport. And 7 of those top 10 finished in the top 10 in the race. So again, qualifying important. Also, this was kind of weird because in the spring, it was Ford and Toyota. Ford and Chevy. Those were the 2 dominant manufacturers in the spring race. Toyota, did nothing out of it. Then in the fall, it was Chevy against Toyota and Ford had nothing. So the one constant was Chevy last year. So I think that gives them a little bit of a leg up, especially as we just noted, if you take a look at those last races, those last 11 races, Chevy has won more than 50% of them. So they do happen to be right now the manufacturer to beat, but it's still wide open. And I think it's going to be a good, fun race that we'll learn a lot. And I think we'll have a chance for maybe another long shot win this week. It's quite possible.
Yeah, I think that chance is there, but I think you hit the nail on the head. That being the first 1.5 mile oval of the season, that's not a super speedway. This type of parity, I think this is the first week probably we're going to get a really firm picture of what to expect over the next couple of weeks, at least until we get to the summer as far as parity goes and, who's really competitive and who's not.
Who's the favorite? Is it obvious?
I'm going to guess Kyle Larson is the favorite.
Yeah, this is one that is really obvious. And to tell you the truth, I think 5-1 is not bad. We've seen Kyle Larson be the odds-on favorite, like he's going to be, and he's 3-1 plus 350. So I don't think 5-1 is all that bad, and you understand why. Not because he has like 7 wins in 12 races, but he has 3, and those 3 have come in the last 12. He also has 3 runner-ups in the last 12. That's pretty damn impressive. So 50% of the time in the last 12 races, he's been either first or second. And we should also throw in the fact that, and by the way, he had the best car in both races last year. and he didn't win either race. So that's NASCAR for you. But he also won the race in Kansas in the spring. Now, once again, Kansas, definitely the most similar track that we want to look at here, but we don't have Kansas yet. It'll help us a lot more when we get to Kansas to talk about Las Vegas. But again, try not to use it as a religion, because Chase Elliott won the fall race in Kansas, and Chase Elliott is pretty bad here. So again, you can't, it's not a religion. You don't use it like that, but it is definitely an added bonus that, hey, yes, on average, what could happen at Kansas could happen at Las Vegas. So take a look at Kansas last year. Anyway, yeah, Larson should definitely be the favorite. And I don't think 5-1 is that bad.
No, definitely not. You look at his last 6 races here. He finished runner-up in the fall. But in terms of laps led, he's had the best car, not just both races last year, but several races out of the last 6. Only one race out of the last 6 at Las Vegas did he fail to lead more than 1 lap. The minimum laps he led in any of the other 5 races was 61. 3 of them were over the 100 mark. 1 of them was approaching 200. So Kyle Larson's consistently quick at Las Vegas. He almost always starts at the front. His average start is 7.3. Average finish of 9.0. His worst finish in the last 6 was in 11th place. Kyle Larson obviously should be your favorite this week.
A little bit tougher. Who should come next?
I would say Denny Hamlin probably next, only because of how recently he won here, and it was from pole. There you go. Bell would have been my other guess. Yep.
Yeah, they're both 7-1. I do favor Bell though, because even though Hamlin had to win again, he wouldn't dominate. But he's been good here. He's a good career here, but not anything outrageous, but solid. 9 top 12s in his last 11, with 5 top 5s and 2 wins. Bell, 4 top 5s in his last 6, with 2 runner-ups, leading over a couple of 100 laps. And he was really good in the fall race last year when he finished 3rd to Denny Hamlin. Had just as good, if not a better car, but I think just as good. And the only thing that he's a little bit off over his career, average start 10.2, average finish 15.8. Also keep in mind, in both races at Kansas last year, he finished 2nd and 3rd. So I think both drivers at 7-1 make a lot of sense as the co-second choice.
Yeah, Denny Hamlin, very consistent, almost always in the top 10 here. Doesn't always necessarily start inside the top 10, but he's in those first 7 rows like we talked about. Obviously won the race from pole last year. Something was off with him in the spring. He started 15th and finished 25th, didn't lead any laps, but that was the only time at this track he didn't lead any laps, going all the way back to 2020, the spring of 2020. So Denny Hamlin, very consistent and almost always running inside the top 10. Christopher Bell, I think, just has a little bit more upside. He has yet to break through here, despite the fact that he's got 3 poles, 2 runner-up finishes, a 3rd place finish, average finish, like you said, 15.8, average start of 10.2. He was started 3rd and finished 3rd in the fall race. He was very good at Kansas, like you said, too. There was one race, last one from pole, where he finished runner-up. He led 155 laps that day. That was the fall of 24. So for me, I think Christopher Bell is due a breakthrough win here at Las Vegas at this track. I think he's due one. Hamlin, having just won it last fall, tips me out of his corner and into Bell's.
Yeah, that's true, because, Hamlin winning, that would be back-to-back. Both drivers in the 4 races this season have had better results each race. So they're both improving. They're trending in the right direction. Bell, a little bit better than Hamlin because he's got a 3rd and a 2nd. And maybe that's part of the reason I also just have Bell just a slight edge over Denny. Let's now take a look at the next 3 drivers. Let's do 4. Byron, Reddick, Blaney, Logano. I'm not sure if Blaney should be here. He probably gets an extra couple of points for winning last week because he doesn't have a really good history here at all. If you take a look, even in the last 3 races, his average starting position is 29th. His average finish is 35th. But there are a couple things. 1, it is a new year. 2, In this race last year, he actually had a fast car, but maybe he was too fast because he crashed in practice, so he had to start 36th. Then he went from 36th to the top 10 and it crashed again. So he maybe couldn't handle the car. It got too fast. But anyway, fact is, it was a sign that maybe they had something going, but they didn't translate to the fall. So I just back-to-back, again, what Reddick did, that's an anomaly, please. So I think it's probably unlikely. His teammate, you're getting a little bit better odds. Matter of fact, he's 14-1 at Bovada. So you're getting a little bit better odds there at a regular sports book. Logano's got 4 career wins here. So he's really been solid. He had an okay run the last the 2 races last year. One good result, led 40 laps in this race last year. Reddick, this is going to be interesting now to see how Reddick responds to the loss because, again, it's a long season. Just how good is Tyler Reddick and this team because their first 3 wins, super speedway, road course. So we give them all the credit in the world. They deserve it. They had a good run last week. Just saying, they've already got 3 wins. So we'll see if they truly are going to have a dominant season or it was just one of those starts. So again, expecting him to win 4 out of 5, I just think that's asking too much. Even though in his 12 career races, 50% of the time he has finished in the top 10 on this racetrack with 2 top 5s. And then the other one is William Byron. I'd probably go with Byron out of this group. Byron has 1 win out of 16, 6 top 10s in the next gen with 4 top 5s and a win. And that was much better than pre-next gen, where he only had 2 top 10s in 8 races. He crashed in the fall, but that was that infamous crash that he had with Ty Dillon on the pits. And we all remember what happened there. Otherwise, he had a really good car, led 55 laps, and also had a pretty good car in this race last year, finishing 4th. Average start, though, 10.3 to average finish 15.0 is not what you're looking for. But still, I think out of this group, I'd take him as my top choice.
Yeah, Byron out of these 4 is the clear standout for me. I think that average finish of 15th is weighted probably a little bit unfairly because he had a number of finishes outside the top 20 when he first started his career here. And then obviously, like you said, the crash last year, which last fall, when he was leading 55 laps and started 5th. So clearly a competitive car that day. If you take that one out and you look at just the 5 prior races at Las Vegas, he won one of them and finished 10th in another, and then had 2 top 5s in addition to that. So they were all top 10 finishes, 1 victory and 3 total top 5s out of that span. That's really consistent, really strong. Second for me out of the bunch would be Reddick. I agree. It's asking a lot to win 3 out of the first 4. Or 4 out of the first 5, whatever we are here now. But probably the most upside potential out of all the bunch, similar to some of the other guys that we've talked about. He's had some good runs here, had a runner-up finish in 2024 in the spring race. He started on pole in the fall of 2022, led 34 laps in this race last year. So he's knocking on the door. Just has to put a full race together to be able to get to the finish. And they've got a lot of momentum on their side. The only driver still at this point in the season that has all top 10 finishes so far.
Okay, next up, we've got these next 4 drivers here. And the one that actually, Briscoe sticks out the most. Elliott's 14-1 at Bovada. So, and I think that's where he belongs. He's never had a top 5 in the next gen, and he's never led a lap in the next gen. Okay, so forget about Elliott right now. We'll see what he does on Saturday. As far as the others, I mean, Briscoe had done nothing at all, even in his first race last year, heading into the fall. Then all of a sudden, he was on the front row, led 57 laps, and finished 4th. And he was 4th at both Kansas races. So, and you're looking at a driver as well that had success here in the O'Reilly series with winning his last 2 races in that series while leading 253 combined laps in 2020. So he knows how to get around the track, maybe finally found a way to do it in the Cup Series. And that's why I would give him the benefit of that of this group. The other guy I'd keep an eye on based on the odds would be Bubba. And you mentioned it last week. And he went ahead and had another good result. So far, past history for Bubba at these last couple of tracks hasn't meant anything. He's actually really doing better than we've ever seen him do to start out of the gate. And again, just like we said, it's the first race of the year for a 1.5 mile track. So I'm willing to give him and some of these other long shots the benefit of the doubt that they've fixed something and found something. And even last year when his results weren't very good, he led a combined 25 laps, which for him actually isn't all that bad, considering he only led 54 laps in his entire history. And also in the last Kansas race in the fall, he finished fifth. So I think Wallace is one of the top long shots because he's probably right. He begins the long shots, the true long shots there at 22-1. And I definitely think that he has to be on your long shot play.
Totally agree with everything you said. Chase Elliott, not just going to look past because his record here has not been great, especially since the next gen car has come. So anything he did this weekend, maybe they figure out, maybe they turn it around, but then that gives us some reason to go with him maybe in the fall or maybe next year. So he's out. Chastain, pretty good, but not showing the same type of potential, I would say, as some of the other ones that we talked about, looking for the breakthrough. He's led some laps, had some good races, a runner-up finish and a bunch of top 10s, but he seems more like a top 5, maybe second half top 10 kind of car on a good day here. Chase Briscoe, I think I agree with you. I think they figured something out. So he started on the front row in the fall, ended up finishing 4th, led 57 laps, which was completely contrary to almost everything else he's ever done at this track. So I think that's definitely going in the right direction. The one thing that concerns me about Briscoe, and maybe it's just Phoenix, just bad at Phoenix, another problem another into the wall. So how does he and the team overcome that? We'll see this weekend, but I do think Bubba Wallace, with the momentum he's got on his side, best start to a season in his career, I would say. He started inside the top 10 here in the fall last year. Like you said, led a combined 25 laps. Even though he hasn't done much, his average finish at Las Vegas is 22.6. He's got one top 5, one other top 10. I'm willing to go with him because, like you said, first 1.5 mile race of the season, momentum's on his side. He's been doing better things at tracks that he's never been good at before in the past, like a road course in Phoenix. So, I think Wallace is a very good long shot this week at those odds.
11th or better in all 4 races, 3rd in points right now. And look, I also think Chastain is somebody to keep an eye on if he has a good Saturday. Because he does have 7 top 12s and 8 next gen races, 5 top 5s and a runner up. Only led 16 laps in his last 6 races though at Las Vegas. But one of the strongest races during those last 6 was this race last year when he finished 5th, leading 14 laps from the 19th position. He had a pretty good car in the spring, not so much in the fall. Okay, let's move on to the next group. And here's the defending champ. Out of this group, I mean, Ty Gibbs is sort of like, we got to look at Ty Gibbs the same way we're talking about Bubba. It's like, okay, new 1.5 mile year. And, last couple of races, things are going well. He's got a new team. It's funny, he said after the race, it's fun to be with guys who kind of, believe and want to be together and that sort of thing. So it sounds like there's some nice chemistry with this new team that he has. He does have a win in the O'Reilly series at this track. So that's something that's good. And he's got an average starting position inside the top 13, considering his average finish is 24th. So that's a good sign. Hasn't, again, which is 1 top 5 out of 7 in the Cup. Haven't so much, but this year definitely different. Hocevar hasn't shown anything, unfortunately. And he's 50-1 to Bovada. So I probably wouldn't go his way unless he qualifies really well and practices really well. And Berry, for him to win a second race in a row, that would be really hard. But at least you're getting 40-1. And I do think it's kind of interesting that last year he was 35-1, and then he wins the race, and this year he's 40-1. So I'm not sure what the deal is with that. So you are getting value. I'll tell you that much. Because when we talk about winning back-to-back races, usually those drivers are 8-1, 10-1, 6-1. But this guy's 40-1. I know he was 100-1. Again, 35-1. That was the fall race. But he was 100-1 in this race. So there is an improvement there, a big improvement, but not much with what happened in the fall. So yeah, and Buescher here. I don't really see a whole lot with Chris Buescher. I'm not sure this is the week to go with him. So I think Gibbs is the one that stands out.
Yeah, I was going to say Buescher is really consistent, but he's consistent as a top 15 kind of contender. He's not necessarily going to get you up there at the front. Hocevar, I don't see any reason to go with him this week. He hasn't really shown much at this track in the past. Maybe they come out and surprise, but I'm willing to miss on that one when you've got Bubba that we just talked about that has much more momentum on his side. I think Josh Berry will be good. I'm not sure, what problems affected him in the fall per se. Kind of had some rough starts to this season. So looking for a good day from Berry with some confidence coming to a place that he can excel at. And I think he'll do pretty well. Ty Gibbs is the one that I think has got more potential though. And that's completely based on his performance last week and the way that he seemed out of the car and the way that this season has been going for him so far. He's just starting to, grow into what it is, being at Joe Gibbs Racing and taking that wheel. It's been a long time coming. We've been waiting for it. He still has a ways to go, still needs to actually make the breakthrough and do it on a consistent basis. But
heck, he's got to win a race.
Exactly right. Like what I saw last week, though. So I think out of this bunch, Ty Gibbs would stand out for me. I would not put him over, Bubba Wallace or anybody like that. Just comparing amongst these four, Gibbs would be my top choice.
Yeah, and hopefully when he does win, he'll win when he has nice odds like this that we could take advantage of it. Okay, here are the next four. And out of this group, look, the only one that's not interesting would be the obvious. That's the rookie. So can't really give the rookie anything here. As usual, it's still too early to think about wagering on him. He hasn't done much as well to put me in any way, shape, or form into a zone to wager on him yet. Kyle Busch, I would just consider him because he's a big number with pretty good results here, including next gen, 50% in the top 10, 3 of those top 5s, started 4th in this race last year. Bowman is, I think, maybe the best out of the group because he had a good car in both races last year. And matter of fact, he was the best driver. Talked about that top 10 deal in the fall. Well, he started outside the top 10, but was the best driver doing that. So he actually ended up, he was one of the very few that started outside the top 10 and finished inside the top 10 when the race was over. And so he had a really good car most of the day. And then also was very good in this race last year, but had pit road issues. But still, last 3 races, 7th, 7th, and 5th, with 5 top 10s and 3 top 5s, and a win in the next gen that happened in 2022. He was also 5th in the spring at Kansas. Preece is the other interesting one, which is kind of strange because Keselowski hasn't done anything. Hasn't done anything, but Ryan Preece all of a sudden, after not doing anything on this track his entire career, hits a 3rd and a 9th last year, also 7th in Kansas in the spring. So Preece and Bowman would be the most interesting, but Kyle also just because of the big number. And I know he's capable of starting in the top 10 or top 5 like he did last year, which means that you might be getting a benefit of 45-1 now instead of maybe 20-1 on Saturday.
Again, I don't disagree with anything you said. Bowman is the one at this bunch that stands out for me. 5th, 7th, and 7th, like you said, had a couple of races, fall of 23, spring of 24 that weren't so good, but then the 2 before that, 1st and 3rd. So Bowman can definitely get it done at this track and has done consistently. So except for those 2 races. Preece actually is very interesting as well, because not only was it the race finishes, so, you can do strategy, you can figure out whatever things can happen toward the end of the race and you can move up. But his qualifying positions actually significantly improved as well. His best starting position prior to the last two races at the track was 16th. And then 12th and 16th were his starting positions in the two races last year. Prior to that, he very rarely started inside of the top 20 at Las Vegas. So Preece figured something out for sure. That's why I like him. Bowman just stands out because he's a former winner. We know he can steal races. He can get to the end. Usually starts around the top 10 here, certainly inside the first 7 rows, and is a consistent top 10 finisher. So for me, it's Bowman out of this bunch. Preece is a pretty good long shot as well if you want to take a little bit of a stretch. And I wouldn't deny Kyle either. Just needs to kind of figure things out here with Richard Childress Racing and start finding success. And I think he'll be back up into the old form.
Yeah, Kyle can definitely use a good race because he's maybe in that crossroads part of. I know it's early, but based on how things have gone recently in his career, he could go one way or another. So I think this is one of those races that could define that. By the way, in Bovada, both Bowman and Preece are a lot less. So you're getting 35 to 1 with Bowman and 33 to 1 with Preece. So definitely two drivers that are getting better odds than you see here. Okay, now on this board, we've got two that I'm not going to even think about and two that I'm definitely playing on long shots. And the two, I think you know which two I'm talking about.
So from a long shot perspective,
which two out of this 4? Is it obvious to you as it is to me, the two that I would take and maybe you would take as long shots?
Well, yeah, it's not very obvious to me. I might think Cindric and Suarez, to be honest.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay.
Cindric and Suarez.
Obvious to me, but maybe it was just the way you set it up. Made me nervous.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. So anyway, Cindric, if you look at it, does he have a great history? No. Maybe that's part of the obvious deal. But he was 6th in this race last year, led 47 laps, had a strong car, but could have won the race. He had pit road issues, still finished 6th. Was 11th in the fall and improved 20 spots from his 31st position. So also a really good fantasy option possibility. And then Cindric, just looking at what he's done here in his career at O'Reilly, well, he's got an average in his last 4 O'Reilly starts. His average finish was 4th, and he led a combined 125 laps in those races. His average starting position in all 8 O'Reilly races here was 4.8. So he knows the track well, and he's starting to show it. On top of that, he's starting to now race well too, including last week. It was not his fault of what happened. He had a top 5 car all day until he got wrecked, and sort of like Briscoe, they just have bad luck right now. But Cindric, you're getting obviously bigger points because he's a long shot, not as much respect as Briscoe. But we've talked about this. He was my breakthrough driver last year. He's your breakthrough driver this year. And I think what we've seen at him the last couple of weeks, I think it's now time. This is a great opportunity for him. And at 65 to 1, I think you need to keep your fingers crossed, go with a guy like Cindric or Suarez and see if we can catch him at the right time, because Suarez, I mean, in the next gen, he's got 3 top 10s in the last 6, 2 top 5s and a runner-up. In his last 3 races, now we're going to throw out the fall race. That was not a great race for one reason or another. That's probably his worst race during the stretch. But the previous 2, he was 2nd and 3rd. And in this race, actually the fall race last year, this race last year is when he finished 2nd, led 12 laps. And the race in 2024 in the fall, he finished 3rd and led 57 laps. Now, what's also really good about Daniel Suarez on a fantasy level is in the last 6 races, he has improved 78 positions on the track. So, and again, that last fall race was the outlier. So you just hope that was just a one that's what you got to hope. But that's why I think Suarez and Cindric, to me, are really good long shot plays, especially in fantasy.
Without a doubt, Suarez, I think fall race deserves to be thrown out because he knew he wasn't coming back at that point to Trackhouse Racing. Probably didn't have, all the best parts. It was into the playoffs and all that good kind of stuff. So kind of just forget about that one. But like you said, prior to that, second and third, leading 12 and 57 laps. In both of those races, he started outside of the top 20 too. So moved way forward to be able to come up and finish inside the top 5 and potentially even have a chance to win those races. And then the same thing is true for Cindric. In this race last fall, he finished 11th, not very remarkable, didn't lead any laps, pretty quiet, but he started 31st. He moved forward 20 spots, and had he started inside even the top 20, probably would have been, top 5, top 10 kind of car. Back in the spring race, he started 3rd and finished 6th, so that just kind of shows you, and led 47 laps. So that just shows you what he's capable if he's got track position. So I think Cindric is worth taking now and hope he qualifies inside, say, the top 20. I think you're going to be golden. And Suarez, definitely from a fantasy perspective, I think he's settling in pretty quickly at Spire. I don't think he's going to miss a beat. I think this could be one of his better races in the early portion of the season.
Yeah. And look, I'm not going to say he's a throwout, but just based on just the fact that Brad Keselowski is not really raced very well overall in the next gen here. But last year was actually a really good year for him in the next gen. Even though he didn't have a top 10, he had a 10th and 11th. Actually, he did have a top 10 with the 10th. But the most important thing that sticks out is he improved 40 positions on the year at this track last year. So if you happen to see Keselowski starting 30th, again, he could still be a really good play in fantasy if you need to. Obviously, you can see what your cap looks like. But the fact that he might be in the same cap space as Cindric and Suarez, I don't know if I can take 3 of them at that level. But again, he's not a bad option. Maybe a wild card option just to keep an eye on, depending on what goes on Saturday. Jones, I wouldn't even consider.
Yeah, I think it all depends on qualifying. For example, if Cindric qualifies horribly, like I'm talking 25th or worse, maybe you think about throwing in Keselowski if he's inside the top 15 in those first 7 rows or so. But otherwise, I do think Cindric and Suarez are the better choices. Yeah,
and again, a lot of it's going to be dependent upon you're thinking of wagering on the race or fantasy. So, in fantasy, you're like, oh, good, Cindric starting 28th. I like that. That's what I want to see, because you have a really good idea that he's going to wind up doing well, especially if he does good in practice. So that's a telltale sign right there. Again, as we said last year with the whole practice qualifying setup. Okay, and then the rest of the long shots, the only other, I think there's only one more that sticks out for me out of this entire group. By the way, it's nice to see Shane Van Gisbergen get off to a good start.
I was going to say, SVG that stands out for you since he's consistently top 15 now?
No, he's not going to be the one that stands out. But again, it's nice because overall, he hasn't done anything at all here. So I think it's baby steps for him. Yeah. Maybe fantasy wise may not be a look at if he doesn't qualify well with practice as well. But the one guy that I would just, again, I've got enough long shots here, but Noah Gragson, I would just look at as one of those. I mean, who knows? Maybe he could be a Josh Berry type because he's a Las Vegas native. He also was in contention really for most of the day in the spring race last year. It was one of his better races. And in the O'Reilly series, he's got an average finish of 3.4 in 8 races, including runner-ups in his last 2 races in 2022. So he gets pretty motivated to race in his hometown, and you're getting 150 to 1. You might want to also take a look again because his average starting position is 23.7 and his average finish is 18.2. So you are getting a 5-point add-on with his start to finish. But what about you? Any of these other long shots stick out?
Gregson would have been the one that I chose. I just wanted to call out SVG because, again, he's outperforming expectations. It's clear that he's improving, but I do think from a real potential kind of standpoint, probably Noah Gregson this week at his home track. He does have a 6th place finish and another 11th place finish in the Cup Series here. And like you said, crashed out, so didn't really get to see what he was capable of in the spring race last year.
Yeah, Michael McDowell's also off to a nice start. So we'll see if that's phony or not, because he has had a terrible history at Las Vegas. Okay, it's time for our picks. I'm going for 3 straight. I'm going for my own little three-peat here. So who picks first? You?
I believe it's me this week.
Okay.
And I'll take the Dominator since the odds are good. I'll go with Kyle Larson.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. So Larson off the board. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead with Bell.
All right. I will make my second choice another Hendrick guy, and I'll go with William Byron.
Oh. Okay. All right. So it's either I'm not going to take 2 long shots, so I'll take Briscoe.
Awesome. That leaves me the one I wanted, which was Wallace.
And I let's see. It's either Cindric or Suarez. So I'll go Cindric. Okay. So there you are. Top long shots, and there are some good ones. Wallace, Gibbs, Bowman, Cindric, Suarez. And you could also throw in maybe Gibbs, Priest, and Gregson. Lots of long shots to consider in a race that as we talked about, can be very open. And that's that means that there's some really good possibilities, hopefully. So, okay. Now, before we get into this, wow, he's the favorite again.
Yes.
Okay. Before we get into this, this week's race for the F1. Okay. P-Man's got his, by the way, P-Man will also wrap up. Wow. He's going with Hocevar.
Hocevar. Nice choice.
Out of the blue. Okay.
We'll see how he does.
Yeah. All right. So for our F1, and by the way, let us know what's on, what other picks you guys have. Give us your top 3 picks, and we'll hold you to it on our next show. Okay. So with F1, please tell me that the changes they've made in the offseason can stick. And what we saw this past week could be, I mean, it looks like it's going to happen this week again. So, and I'm hearing about cars being able to pass left and right. And if you push the button, you're flying by. And it's like, there's chaos out there, which is what I'm looking for. An American fan is definitely looking for in the F1 series. Is this just something that happens every year? It's just a little bit more this year, but within the next few weeks, everything will even out again. Or can we be at a defining moment in the F1 series right now as far as the word parity?
I think the parity that you saw last weekend is going to go away at some point this year for a firm pecking order. But I think there are some interesting things to come. It's definitely exacerbated by the new rules. We talked about it last week. There's not a lot of testing, and the entire rules package changed. These are completely new cars, new specs, new engines, new power distribution. Like everything is new about them. So to have that many cars making that many passes is pretty remarkable. But then you got to expect the attrition as well. So the engine failures and all that kind of stuff with as little testing as they have is going to happen. What I took away from it, and yes, it was exciting to see how drivers used the electric motor, the push to pass versus the movable arrow and all that good kind of stuff. I think as time goes on, they're going to figure out what the best way to deploy those devices are, and it becomes a little bit more stable. I think last week in Australia, you were still seeing them testing things out, trying to figure out where they could make up time on the lap versus where they would lose time. So where's the best place to use it? Where's not the best place to use it? Where does it, make you weaker? And things of that nature. So I think they'll figure that out over the next several weeks. And the evolution of the cars is going to make the reliability better. And I think the places where teams have potential gains, they're going to expand those gains even further. Looking at Mercedes versus Ferrari, I think those are your two favorite. We said before the start of the season that they were two of the four that we were looking at. Red Bull and McLaren certainly a step off. So we'll see if they're able to close the ground. But Mercedes and Ferrari are the two best right now. And I think those are going to be the ones that compete for the wins over the next several races here. And I think getting to China, which is this week's race, it's going to be key to Ferrari to give them a chance to win if they can do exactly what they did last week with Leclerc getting off the line first and getting into the lead, because it's harder to pass at China than it is at Melbourne. So I think if Ferrari can get that blistering kind of start and get out front again, I think they stand a better chance of being able to hold Russell and Antonelli behind. However, last week at Melbourne, the winning move really was Mercedes' strategy and the way that they called them into the pits. And when they pitted for tires, Ferrari seemed to be wedded to an unwinning strategy very early on, and they refused to change. So, it's up to Ferrari to correct their mistakes on the strategy side. I think they've got a car certainly that can win, though.
Okay, so what about, like, for instance, I was looking at some of these reactions. So you got like F1's plan to change troubled 2026 rules. Rule changes already. What else do we got? Divisive. What divisive Australian GP exposed about F1's 2026 cars? So yeah, explain, like some of this hyperbolic reaction to, is this like, what they say in football, it's overreaction Monday. Is that basically what we're dealing with F1? Is the first race of the season is overreaction Sunday?
For sure. Look at the drivers. Most of the negative commentary about the rules came from the drivers that didn't have much success. It was Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton are two that.
And what specifically did they not like?
They don't like the fact that you can't race the car all out for an entire lap, that you have to decide where to use the push to pass and how to set up your opponent and that type of thing. And
so the whole push to pass thing, that's a really big thing now compared to the recent years.
It absolutely is a much bigger thing, because you have to go slower in corners where you could otherwise go faster in order to make sure that your battery is full enough to use push to pass down an entire straightaway. So you at places will strategically have to back off in order to potentially make a pass. And that's what Hamilton and Verstappen and some others are complaining about. And that's what people don't. So the complaints about it are that it's superficial, that it's just fabricated passing, that if you let the cars, have a full complement of being able to go all out for a full lap, that you'd have different results and that type of thing. So I think it's overreaction. I think they'll normalize out over time as the development takes hold. But these drivers, the rules are the same for everybody. You can like the rules or you can not like the rules. They are what we have now. So you got to kind of learn how to work within the box and make it work to your advantage. And I think the people that are crying the loudest are the ones that haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, it sort of reminded me of Fast and the Furious, with the NAS. When exactly to press the button.
It it at times. It absolutely looked like it at times. You could tell, I think it was the Ferrari Leclerc when he came back on Russell at one of the points on the straightaway in Melbourne. It looks like he was shot out of a cannon and Russell was standing still. So, yeah, there's going to be complaints that it looks fabricated and it's fake passing and all that kind of stuff. But the rules are what they are. Teams have got to figure it out. And Mercedes proved, regardless, that whatever the rules are, a solid strategy can win the race at the end of the day. And that's exactly what they did.
Okay, so why is George Russell such a heavy favorite already this week? What's the deal with this?
Probably just that he's the experienced guy in the team. I think Kimi Antonelli really proved himself significantly better than probably most people thought. I wasn't doubting him at all. I, in fact, predicted that he would get on to the podium. In fact, he did. Even with the troubles that he had throughout the weekend. So I think it's just the fact that Russell won. Russell is more experienced, a little bit more consistent. So he's going to be your heads up favorite. I think Antonelli stands a chance, and I wouldn't count out either Ferrari either. So I think Leclerc and Hamilton are two worth looking at as well. And Verstappen came into the points from all the way back at the back of the field. So he was able to make moves through the field all day. And if he's able to not have a crash in qualifying and actually get his car to start further up the grid, he may end up being in contention as well. Yeah, I think these odds are crazy. I mean, even Isaac Hadjar, he had a fantastic debut for Red Bull as Verstappen's teammate. I think we finally found somebody that can handle the Red Bull as well as Verstappen does and give him more time in the car. I think he's going to show some or turn some heads certainly as well. And McLaren will figure it out. Maybe not this week, maybe give them another couple of weeks. But I'm surprised actually that the Ferraris and Leclerc specifically are that far behind Russell at this point.
Yeah, usually when any driver's 30 to 1 in F1, they're not doing anything. Is that the case for McLaren this week?
No, I don't think so. They're clearly a step behind Mercedes and Ferrari, but I think under the right conditions, given all the unknowns still around reliability, I think McLaren could get themselves into a podium and strategy can still win. So McLaren tends to call pretty good strategies as long as they don't mess it up on their stops. So I think they could be in contention as well. It's too early to call to have this big of a spread and have that big of a favorite. So I think if anybody is looking like a really great value on the board right now, probably Leclerc, maybe even Hamilton.
Okay. So not so much Max.
I want to see Max where he doesn't start from the back, just so I can see a closer comparison side by side to him and the Ferrari and the Mercedes. Definitely a step behind, kind of more in the McLaren range. But the way that he was able to work his way through the field was very impressive. So I'm not counting him out completely yet. But
and before we
clearly the tops.
And before we wrap up, yeah, I popped in my, what was it, Sunday morning, and I popped in my YouTube and searching for some of the things that I missed the night before, and I was looking for my F1 coverage, and I couldn't find it. I was like, where's the F1 coverage? What's going on here? And I had no idea that they had made this deal with Apple.
Yeah.
So they took the money, and we'll find out what happens from here, whether or not. I mean, I tell you what I would do. Now, I don't know if they do, but if Apple in any way, shape, or form could figure out a way to put some commercials on with like the Fast and the Furious and with what just took place last week, maybe that could get some of the young fans involved who have no idea what's going on with F1, because that could spark an interest. But yeah, again, not many people have Apple compared to YouTube. So
yeah, definitely not. I was not happy with the move to Apple, to be honest with you. However, I was pleasantly surprised when I turned it on and found out that they are not using the Sky commentators. So those of you who were annoyed by what the commentary that you heard on Formula One last year, if you're watching in the United States, you do not have to put up with that in Apple. So
what was the specific criticism? Was it them being really hyper loud, like from the very first lap of the race, or what was it?
Screamed throughout the first lap of the race. At times, I wasn't sure what race they were watching. They would make up things that really weren't impactful and talk about them. It was just horrible. Kind of like Fox's NASCAR coverage.
Oh, good. Yes. Okay. So it's an all new team.
It's a different team, all new to the United States audiences. Yeah.
Oh, so are they Americans?
They have. I'm trying to think if there are any Americans. Juan Pablo Montoya, you remember him?
Oh, okay.
He was one of the hosts. David Coulthard, ex-Formula One driver, he did pretty well. Julian Palmer, another race car driver. Yeah, I think they did a great job. Certainly better than Sky.
All righty. So what's after China? A couple of weeks off?
A couple of weeks off, and then we go to Japan, if I'm not mistaken. So we've got, China this weekend. We'll have a week off, and then we'll be at Japan the last weekend in March.
All righty. So that's going to wrap it up. Next week is
Darlington.
Okay. So that'll be on next week's show. Again, every Tuesday, 4:00 Eastern, right here on Proline TV. I will be back on Saturday. And again, I'm going to look to do it as late as I can on Saturday, sometime between 4. And since it's a West Coast race, that'll help out sometime between 4 and 8 o'clock. It'll be live again. I'm going to keep it's new. We'll do it later. We do it live. We're trying to get the odds out there. So, and I will make sure that I don't put any sports books up on the screen. So the videos will be available the next day. Of course, I could have edited it, but by the time I looked at it, it was just way too late in the day, and I just couldn't do it. But anyway, anybody that was live last week saw it. So you might want to tune in live once again on Saturday night when we update a very important Saturday for NASCAR with the setup to the race in Las Vegas. And then also you'll have both of your reports linked to that video, CJ, for your F1 coverage and NASCAR coverage from rotowire.com, correct?
You got it. Friday, we'll have them up there.
And of course, you can also check out the link in the description of this video right now. That has a link that goes right to where you can find CJ's work at rotowire.com. For CJ Radune, I'm Greg DePalma. Thanks for tuning in once again to our